दरख्वास्त करूंगा Mr. Zainul Haq से, who is the CEO of Asia Insurance, to please come up on stage and moderate this next panel on insurance. Big round of applause for Mr. Zainul Haq.
Thank you very much, Ji. It's been an interesting, almost a bit more than half a day, listening to how technology blends into healthcare and healthcare management. Insurance tends to get left out of the discussion when we talk about health, when we talk about most things really. And जिस तरह हम इंडस्ट्री में कहते हैं कि इंश्योरेंस बेचने का सबसे अच्छा तरीका है उसे इंश्योरेंस ना कहो, कुछ और कह दो, लोग खरीद लेंगे. इसी तरह की चीज़ों के बारे में कि इंश्योरेंस ने इवॉल्व कैसे किया है पाकिस्तान में और इसकी हिस्ट्री क्या रही है और अब हम आगे कैसे जाते देख रहे हैं, ये हम डिस्कस करेंगे इस पैनल में. फॉर अ ब्रीफ सिनॉप्सिस मैं आपको ये बता दूं, शुरुआत इंश्योरेंस की पाकिस्तान में ऑफ कोर्स जो हम सब ने देखा है ग्रुप लाइफ से हुई, और जो वर्कमेंस कॉम्पनसेशन थी ये दो मेन प्रोडक्ट्स रही थी, जिसमें मैंडेटरी कुछ ना कुछ इंश्योरेंस का एक एलिमेंट आता था, और वहाँ से बाकी सारी हमारी जो बड़ी कंपनीज़ हैं उसी तरफ निकली हैं. आज के दिन में हम देख रहे हैं कि विद द सेहत कार्ड जो KPK से पंजाब में भी आ गया है कि ये अब एक एवोल्यूशन की अगली स्टेज में हम जा रहे हैं जहाँ मैसेज के अंदर इंश्योरेंस को पहुँचाया जा रहा है. तो इस चीज़ पर डिस्कस करने के लिए मैं अपने पैनलिस्ट को इन्वाइट करूँगा. फर्स्ट ऑफ नीलोफर सुहेल फ्रॉम EFU लाइफ, शी इज़ द हेड ऑफ चैनल स्ट्रैटेजी. कुछ तालियां तो बजाएं यार तौबा. Next I'd like to invite Azim Pirani from Pak Qatar Family Takaful. There he is. Azim is the CEO of Pak Qatar Family Takaful. And while he joins us also, अभी आपने उनसे सुना तो था, Dr. Saira Siddiq, currently of MedIQ, but initially she also headed up the Sehat Sahulat program in KPK, जो कि अब Sehat Card बन गया. So Dr. Saira, if you could also please join us. Thank you very much. माइक हमें एक और मिल सकता है प्लीज स्टेज पे. To begin with, मैं इस चीज़ के साथ शुरू करता हूँ कि health costs they go up to about 50% of disposable income for a large section of the population. इसके अंदर being an insurer मैं ये देखा करता हूँ कि हमारी हमेशा पिच ये होती है कि insurance means कि जिस चीज़ की भी cost है उसको आप एक small percentage बना लें. I think healthcare के अंदर we see normally let's say 4 to 6% of the amount you want to cover. मगर इसके अंदर how do you see it कि insurance की जो अपनी एक capability है to cover for losses, to cover for events, उसको आप कैसे assess करेंगे and how that has changed? Azim, if you could speak to that first, please.
Bismillah. Well, as you rightly said, the objective of insurance is to indemnify a customer or a user in the eventuality that something will occur. Right? So there are two elements that are key in that, and that is size and then obviously the quantum of premium. Now, when the size increases, and we'll get to that in this discussion, to a mass level, then your quantum of premium starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. The assumption being that every eventuality won't occur with every person. Yes, you have mass disasters, natural disasters, those things happen, so those coverages are separate then. But the focus being, and every time we as private insurers develop a product, our management, the main question they ask is, how many people are you going to get to buy this thing? Because the more people we can get, the safer we are. Yeah. Because if we make a product that's really, really cheap, but we sell it only to 5 people, and even one person shows up, the product is a failure. So for us, the key thing that we need to look at is, yes, the probability of an event occurring, but more importantly, what volume of people can I have coming through the door? So that is the main focus as an insurance company where we would be looking.
Thank you. And I'll take this concept of the volume of people we need, just the sheer numbers. Insurance is ultimately a statistical and mathematical calculation. And so it is a numbers game, and the larger the scale, there's economies to be had. But, and I'll come to you with this, Nilofer, that being in a life insurance company, why is it that even on this stage, we see that life insurance in Pakistan is leading really the charge towards health insurance, not so much non-life, of which I am an industry member as well. If you could speak to that also, please.
Ji, thank you so much, Zain, for the question. Before moving on to the answer of this question, I would like to thank the team of AIM Consulting. I think they have done a brilliant job in bringing all of us together. और I think जो है ना वो बहुत सारे questions के answers जो है ना वो यहीं पर लाए करते हैं. यहाँ पे जो है ना वो एक ecosystem I can see is developing, जिसके अंदर जो है वो members from the insurance company, from technology, from pharmacy, everyone is there. सो जो है वो एक चीज़ इवॉल्व हो रही है. यू वेरी ग्रेसफुली सेट कि हम बहुत ज़्यादा डोमिनेट करते हैं, पर रियलिटी ऐसी नहीं है. अभी पाकिस्तान में जो पेनिट्रेशन है दैट इज़ लेस देन 1% ऑफ द एंटायर इंश्योरेंस. सो येस, रूम बहुत बड़ा है. बट हाँ, नाउ कमिंग बैक कि क्यों है, तो आई थिंक लाइफ इंश्योरेंस के साथ एक नेचुरल फिट बन रहा है ऑफ हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस, बिकॉज लाइफ इंश्योरेंस एक लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोडक्ट है जिसके अंदर जो है वो आप उस इंडिविजुअल को यू कीप हिम टैप्ड विद यू फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम. उसके दौरान उसकी लाइफ में बहुत सारे फेजेस आते हैं. देयर आर मैनी थिंग्स दैट दे गो इनटू एंड स्पेशली दैट रिलेट्स टू हेल्थ. तो इसलिए जो है ना वो दैट्स अ नेचुरल फिट जो आ जाता है. दैट कैन बी इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रोवाइडिंग अ सेपरेट राइडर, दैट कैन बी इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रोवाइडिंग अ वैल्यू एडेड बेनिफिट, बट वो जो एक एम्बेड हो जाता है डायरेक्टली इनटू द एंटायर जर्नी. But still, again, there are question marks. कितने retail customers are actually buying health insurance from even a life insurance company or a general insurance company? I think अभी भी majorly जो health जा रहा है, and my colleagues can comment and then you can comment, is corporate health. So yeah, that realization still has to come, and I'm very happy that people are participating. We have insurance in this dynamic discussion, जिसके through हम इसको to the next level लेके जा सकते हैं.
Thank you. Because very true that health insurance in Pakistan, let's say until at least 4 years ago, was corporate health insurance. And this was popularized more by MNCs and large local corporates as being a service above the social security contributions that pretty much every company has to give. But as part of this, and the sort of thing we talked about, how the costs of healthcare are there, that is the cost that insurance has to spread also. Dr. Sara, if you could speak something about that. What are the expenses that we're covering in insurance, and how apt or not do you see that being? The major costs, of course, surgery, hospitalization is, of course, a big, a large, chunky items, I would say. But you also have OPD expenses, like labs, pharmacy, and so on.
So thank you so much, and thank you once again for bearing with me and having me on the stage. So very rightly said, इसमें insurance I'm not an insurance expert, I'm just a health financing person, but important aspect is what is the benefit package which you are providing, because the cost of the premium is also determined by the benefit package. Now, on the other hand, we also have to see what is pushing people into poverty or catastrophic health expenditure, जिसके लिए government ने program बनाया है. So if we look at the drivers of catastrophic health expenditure or the economic shocks which push people into poverty, they are basically expenditure for hospitalization, yes, one of the major reasons. But an important another reason is chronic illnesses. For example, a patient on dialysis, a patient requiring treatment for hypertension, cardiovascular diseases. Now, these are not hospitalization products. These are OPD products which need to be covered. And they're expensive treatments. So the benefit, I must appreciate the government for taking this agenda forward. I must say that it never started from KPK. It actually started from a very small village close to Faisalabad about 11 years back. Pandiawala, maybe if I'm pronouncing it right. So वहाँ से शुरू किया था, और वो पिछले से पिछली गवर्नमेंट थी जिसने शुरू किया था, and 2 governments later it has now become a universal health coverage program. So the government has to see कि जो taxpayer money या money, the exchequer's money which is going into this insurance scheme as a premium, is it actually covering the reason for pushing people into poverty, which is not only hospitalization but OPD coverage as well. And unfortunately, currently, abhi OPD की कोई coverage नहीं आ रही. And looking at the data from the claims data from the insurance company who's providing the services, I think 98% of the people are going back disgruntled from the hospitals. I'm not saying any particular geographical area, but as a design, chunke unko they require outpatient services, and outpatient services are not provided by them, by those hospitals. People go there after spending kiraya and everything, leaving their daily wages, and then in the return they are asked for a fee for OPD because it's not covered, वो फिर दवाएं नहीं देते हुए आते हैं, वो फिर कुछ और ही कहते हुए आ रहे होते हैं, right?
Very true, Dr. Saab. It's something I'll build on a little as well. OPD is something that we as an industry, life and non-life together, have shied away from now. After the initial years, even in the corporate side, we try to avoid direct OPD insurance and normally move it towards some kind of managed pool or something of that sort. The reason being not so much what I would call a moral hazard, but an authenticity problem. The ultimate thing an insurance company needs to check is, was this the person who we had insured, and is this treatment right? And of course, did this treatment occur or not? And right now, across the country, we don't have an integrated infrastructure that can answer all these three questions. Depending on the hospital you're working with, depending on the patient also, availability of records is different, and the quality of the record is very different. That's something Dr. Syed had also mentioned in the previous panel. And that is a big challenge for us, even if we want to offer OPD, which, as Dr. Syed said, is something that the customer needs. We simply cannot, because at the back end, we cannot manage it. But talking about this thing in terms of what products we're offering, what is it about those products that the customer is being educated about? Azim, if you could speak about something, and I'll pick a point from Dr. Saira. In the Sehat card solution that the government has rolled out, merits and demerits aside, the name insurance does not really show up that much, not in the messaging. It's more, it's universal healthcare. And it's not so much, but it is an insurance product, as we know. And if you could speak something about that in terms of, we need help in spreading the awareness that this is an insurance product.
You're absolutely right. In 2007, when Takaful was starting, so we actually had this debate internally that should we just call it Islamic insurance or should we call it Takaful? Because we had an example in the example of banking where they just went down the Islamic banking road. So we decided that, well, people don't really know what insurance is anyway. Let's just give them something different and provide, just ensure that they know what this benefit is. Because as we were discussing earlier on today, that although the vast majority of the public will use religious reasons as the reason for not availing insurance, statistics show that it usually boils down to a lack of knowledge or awareness of as to why should I even bother with insurance. And if I'm not going to bother with it, I'll find 10 different excuses not to take it. It just happens to be the religious one that, many people use. Although, yes, there is a segment of society that genuinely, from a religious perspective, will not avail it, but then they will not go on the other financial products as well, similarly. So, whether the government has taken the Sehat card as an idea or they decide to call it universal health care, at the end of the day, if our public is getting the coverage that they need, I don't care what they call it. And to be honest, it really doesn't matter. If you look at the example of multinationals out there whose logos we've imprinted in our minds, Nike, what a dumb-looking logo. I mean, really, it just doesn't make any sense. But yet, everybody remembers it. And it's not because of the genuine nature of the logo, but it's the energy that that company has put behind that logo. And because of that, we all know what it is. You don't have to write the name over there at all. And that's true of most of the multinationals that we see out there, right? So we need to do the same thing. We expect that something is going to happen without putting any effort into it. Well, life doesn't work that way. I mean, for those of you who have children and you're raising them, just let them be on their own and let's see what happens. It doesn't work. You need to put that effort in to drive it in a particular direction. So same thing with us as an industry. Unfortunately, historically, the private insurance sector of Pakistan has always had an issue in the fact that in the early days, our capitalization requirements were very, very small. And life ka aisa tha to general ka to aur bhi chota tha. So obviously nobody had the capacity to go full on into awareness or tech or things like that. Alhamdulillah, things have changed now. The SECP has got higher capital requirement levels. So the newer companies that are coming in and the older companies that are there that are stronger, we need to sort of put more of an effort into this. And if the Sehat Sahulat program does take off, it has taken off in certain regions, then that's the key game changer for companies aside. At the end of the day, we're still Pakistanis. And so whether we're working for a company today or not, tomorrow, if the government is providing this health care, then that's something that we definitely need.
I'll build on that point that doesn't matter what they call it, as long as the benefit is getting to someone, that is the end goal, that is the ultimate goal. And Nilofer, I'll ask you, especially from the point of view of your delving into microfinance and microinsurance, how that applies at a practical level. For example, we saw in Bima's model, it is at the back end an insurance product, but at the front it is hospitalization. That's the core product. So in a similar way, what have you seen in the microfinance space? What benefits are people seeking that they're finding through life or health insurance, or as the case may be?
Absolutely. So I'll give you an example of microfinance. In microfinance, mostly this health cover is built into the loan amount. So what we have seen generally is the population is not aware. जब वो aware नहीं होते हैं तो they don't claim. And when they don't claim, how can we expect कि उनको insurance की importance, insurance के benefits और वो क्या provide करती है at the time when it is much needed पता चलेगी. So that is a problem that we face. While we all thank our government कि I think ये great initiative है of the health card. I think जो है ना बहुत सारा जो है वो ऐसी population थी जिसको इसकी requirement थी. But then again question वही है कि अवेयरनेस नहीं होगी, लोग यूटिलाइज नहीं करेंगे, तो फिर कहीं ये उसी तरह एक बिल्ट इन प्रोडक्ट ना रह जाए जिसको लोग यूटिलाइज ही ना करें, उसकी इंपॉर्टेंस ना हो. इंसाफ कार्ड आई थिंक एक ऐसा टॉपिक है जिस पे अगर हम बात करने बैठे तो आई थिंक द एंटायर पैनल कैन जस्ट टॉक एंड टॉक एंड टॉक. बट इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ ये है कि एक इनिशिएटिव अगर शुरू हुआ है तो आर वी ऑल श्योर कि जो है ना ये कंटिन्यू रहेगा. वी नो द काइंड ऑफ फंड्स दैट आर गोइंग इनटू दिस बेनिफिट, 80-90 बिलियन, सम पीपल कोट मोर देन दैट कि वो जो है ना इस इनिशिएटिव की तरफ लगाया जा रहा है. तो आर वी ऑल श्योर कि जो है ये अगर फॉर एग्जाम्पल देयर इज़ अ चेंज इन गवर्नमेंट तो क्या ये बेनिफिट कंटिन्यू रहेगा इवन आफ्टर दैट. सो आई थिंक ये जो मौका मिला है हमें, और प्रॉब्ली अगर हम इस कॉन्फ्रेंस का कोई वाइट पेपर निकाल रहे हैं तो वी कैन ऑल request the government कि ठीक है एक अपॉर्चुनिटी है to highlight insurance, to bring insurance in the front. So why not avail it to some extent? Thank you.
Thank you. Before we just close up, I'll ask Dr. Sar one question. You mentioned that the product like an OPD, it's not covered in the health card. Let's imagine a future, let's say 5 years on from now, जहाँ health card rollout हो चुका है, and the products are as they are. The health card is what it is today. What do you see as the requirement for insurance to cover things like OPD or premium products above the coverage? How do you see that evolving, let's say 5 years from now? What the insurance industry would need to do?
There was a very good chance for evolution of the insurance industry when the bidding was done for the current अभी जो process है to expand Sahoolat to larger districts, to more number of districts. Unfortunately, it couldn't happen, so private sector couldn't enter it. And I think at the same time, जहाँ एक setback आया है to the private sector by losing on certain clients जो कि micro health insurance में काम कर रहे हैं, it also gives an opportunity to develop certain innovative products. For example, riders for OPD product, which can be low cost. उसमें technology उसमें important role play करेगी. You don't need to have physical visits of the patient to the hospitals to provide OPD services. Now, it's so develop something in collaboration with health tech companies, which can have a low premium product of 1,000 rupee a year, 2,000 rupee a year, but cover the OPD services. And if the patient is having some certain type of chronic disease, तो उसके लिए क्या coverage की जा सकती है? So innovative solutions which need to be developed, and industry has to change the focus के instead of shying away from OPD, अब उसके लिए कोई solution निकालना पड़ेगा क्योंकि hospitalization तो almost अब cover हो गई है. And इसकी sustainability के जो questions है, देखें government दो तरीके से काम usually कर रही है, financial मसल प्रोवाइड कर रही होती है और दूसरा रेगुलेशन कर रही होती है. तो फाइनेंशियल मसल जो है वो आपके एनुअल डेवलपमेंट प्लान से आता है, तो मनी हैज़ बीन एलोकेटेड. अगर सस्टेनेबिलिटी इसकी ख़राब हुई या कुछ होगा तो इट वुड बी द क्वालिटी ऑफ द सर्विस विच इज़ बीइंग प्रोवाइडेड टू द पीपल विच माइट डिसग्रंटल देम और विच मेक देम वर्स ऑफ दिस स्कीम. और उसमें द इंश्योरेंस कंपनी itself has to come up with a certain quality and a service level in order to sustain it. So उसके ऊपर भी, so it's a time for insurance company actually to pivot itself, both from the quality perspective, from the product perspective, and use it as an opportunity rather than as a setback from the private sector.
Thank you very much. I'll just wrap up the panel with some parting thoughts. Nilofer, if you could kick us off.
नहीं, the parting message would be कि अभी भी जो I think अगर एक सबके लिए टेक अवे है. तो प्रॉब्ली हमारा जो है, हम सुबह से बात कर रहे हैं, पेशेंट को इंपॉर्टेंस देनी है, कस्टमर को इंपॉर्टेंस देनी है, बट रियली एंड एक्चुअली वो जो है ना, वो लाइज इन द बेसिक्स ही है. कस्टमर सेगमेंट समझना है हमें, अवेयरनेस पे अभी बहुत काम होना बाकी है. अवेयरनेस होगी, टेक, हेल्थ, टेलीमेडिसिन, इंश्योरेंस, ये सारी चीज़ें जो हैं वो टू द नेक्स्ट लेवल जाएंगी. सो आई थिंक दैट इज़ वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट.
Azim, please.
I'm actually speechless. I think the most important thing that we need to walk away with is a realization that there is a genuine need within our population for good health care. Now, whether it comes from the pharmas, it comes from the hospitals, comes from the insurance companies, we genuinely need to provide them this. If they do not have the capacity or the ability to get it, we need to find some way to give it to them. And ideally, as we were discussing earlier, personally, I think it's the job of the government to ensure they give it to them. And we, as the quote-unquote educated elite of this society, need to hold our government accountable for that. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's the current government or the previous government or the future government. Every government is going to be the same. We need to take that ownership and that responsibility to hold them to task, which thus far we have not been. I mean, we're probably the biggest taxpayers in the country sitting here as salaried individuals, but we never ask where our tax money is going anyway. So if we're not going to ask, nobody's going to bother. So we need to take that ownership in our hands and actually do something within whatever sphere of influence that we have. And by and large, being educated elite, we do have a decent sphere of influence. So let's make that effort to actually do something and make this event count. Otherwise, 2 years down the line, we're going to be sitting here again discussing the exact same thing all over again and saying we need to do something about it. But until we actually start, it's never going to happen.
Wonderful, thank you. And Dr. Sayar, please.
मैंने पहले भी कहा था और अभी भी कहूँगी, I'm a strong believer of collaborations and synergies. I think it's time that different industries, different players within the industry, चाहे वो insurance हो, चाहे tech हो या वो, they all have their certain unique point of theirs, which is their strength. So let's combine our strength to actually get healthcare services delivered to the people. जो कि अभी Pirani साहब ने भी कहा कि it's actually the people in the center who matter the most. So let's combine our let's have synergistic effect. Let's combine our positivity, strengths, and try to deliver best healthcare to the people.
Okay, wonderful. I'll also close out in a similar way as the panelists have mentioned, and Dr. Sayar specifically. Insurance is itself not a product. It is a way of transferring cash across time. And I would say that across your companies, across your use cases, whether it's pharma, tech, whatever, do consider insurance as a way to test use cases for how you can add value when people need that cash injection most. Insurance itself is not a product. We have to make products using the mechanism of insurance. With that, I'll close the panel. Thank you very much. To distribute some mementos, I'll request Saqib Ahmed Saab, the country managing director of SAP, if you could please join us on stage. Thank you. First off, Nilofer Sohail, please. Next up, we have Azim Pirani.
And thanks to Zainul Haq for conducting a wonderful session.